Okay, this is a case which we can actually already see on the first image. There was a question about this little band-like structure and whether it's a circumvallate placenta or a synecium, and I guess, does that even matter?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Again, I'm not saying that the literature on this shows that both of these entities, circumvallate and synechia, have some consequences for the pregnancy. You are clearly going to give your best diagnosis as to which you think is going on. But in my experience, more smoke than fire with both of them.
Okay.
Okay. So the first observation is that this is at the very edge of the placenta, which you would think, okay, well then that's definitely a circumvallate. But the problem is that these synechia are in one spot, and the placenta, as it grows, it grows over a fairly substantial portion of the surface of the uterus, and it will bump into a synecium, and therefore it will appear to be at the edge of the placenta.
Yes.
So we can't use that as our sine qua non for deciding that this might be a circumvallate placenta. Here it is. We see it nicely. Very nicely seen. It has some lucency in it, which may mean there's a marginal sinus. If I knew that, then I would know for sure it was a circumvallate.
A marginal sinus of a placenta.
Yes, marginal sinus of a placenta. The next thing I'm going to do to help make up my mind is to look at the opposite end of the placenta to see if there's a piece of folding at that point as well. Remember that circumvallate does not have to be the entire thing. So,
so here's a cine clip that was taken.
All right, and there you see. Here's the other edge of the placenta, and you can see that there is a ridge of tissue there as well. And furthermore, you can see that that ridge extends across a significant portion of the placenta. For that reason, I would definitely come down strongly on the side of circumvallate placenta over a synechia.
And then also, you want to comment on the location of the placenta itself with relation to the cervix.
So, the important thing to remember is that the names that have been given to placenta previa, marginal, partial, complete, central, those were all developed before the advent of ultrasound, and in my opinion aren't very helpful. What I'm interested in is whether the placenta itself actually has an attachment onto any cervical tissue. If that is the case, I will call it a marginal previa. It doesn't have to come to the edge of the internal os. Okay. If any portion of the placenta crosses the internal os, so if it went to there, then I would call it a complete previa. All right. So I would say that this is a marginal placenta previa because it actually implants on a portion of the placenta. I'm sorry, on a portion of the cervix.
Do you use the term low-lying at all?
Yes, I do use the term low-lying, and the reason is not that I'm concerned that it will be an obstruction at later times or that any placenta in the history of the world ever migrated toward the cervix. But low-lying placentas are a cause of bleeding. There's really no question about it, so it is always worth mentioning.
Okay, great. So you think circumvallate?
Circumvallate, and low enough to mention the word marginal previa in your report.
And lastly, circumvallate, what are the clinical implications that have been described with circumvallate placenta?
Well, they're mainly the kinds of complications of pregnancy that you hear about, earlier delivery, small for dates babies, things of that nature. Again, not in my experience. Okay. Look at it, it's hard to it's hard to battle against large-scale studies which show an implication to these things. Therefore, you should mention them. But don't expect your next case of circumvallate placenta to have a complication of pregnancy.
All right, great. Thanks.